The great pleasure of working with universities and business schools across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And so it's given me a very, very broad perspective on these issues related to change, to conflict, and us, and how it impacts each and every one of us. In the last 12 months, I visited almost 150 schools across EMEA, across Africa, Middle East, and Europe. And so I've been so very impressed with the quality of programs and faculty and modules and courses and experiences that are taking place. And I want to start our short time this afternoon by congratulating each and every one of you. You know, I understood that there were some 7,000 applications for this program, 7,000 from students all over the world, and the 220 who were picked are here. Now that, Now that makes you very special, very unique. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because it puts you in a very unusual class. First of all, that you applied, but more importantly, you were interviewed and then accepted. And so I really congratulate you for making a decision to commit to a wonderful summer experience like this. And that's a credit to each and every one of you. Now, for us to talk about change, and the first, my first slide, if I can get it to work, is this, where it argues that change has become the norm, the expected, versus everything remaining the same. So change is everywhere, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to start with a little exercise, and we're going to do this in just very short order, because after a week you're in 12 different groups, right? Is that right? And you're used to your groups and the way you meet and the sessions you attend and when you come in, where you sit, because that's what we do. We find ourselves always in a pattern. So let's shake it up a little bit. And I want to make you just uncomfortable for a minute, and I want you just to roll with this, if you don't mind. So first I want everybody to stand up and grab all of your belongings. Stand up, and if you've got anything with you, grab onto it. And we're going to go for some discomfort, if that's okay. So if you're in the front row, I want you to go to the back row. If you're in the back row, I want you to go to the front row. And I want to make sure you move at least 3 rows, and I don't want you sitting next to the colleagues that you're sitting next to right now. Now go. Let's move. If you're in the front row, go to the back. If you're in the back row, go to the front. And you are to move around, but not sit to your colleagues that you're sitting next to right now. Now, do we have the music? Can we play that music? While we're moving, now remember, this is about discomfort. This is about changing what you normally do. It's just, and if you can't get it. Let's keep moving. Make sure you keep moving. Get your belongings. That's perfect. That's good. You're still moving. Good, 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 good. Nice. Okay. Perfect. Let's give yourselves a hand. Thank you very much for that. You know, and it's a silly little exercise. Very simple. I used to do it in my classes all the time because part of the benefit of experiences like this with 220 bright, motivated, talented young people from across the world is to get to engage and to get to interact with each other. And you do that by forcing yourself out of your zone of comfort. So I want you to see this wonderful Chinese proverb up here because it's really about challenges and opportunities, right? It's about challenges and opportunities. And I want you to think about how difficult it is for all of us to embrace, to accept change, however it may come. Now, 19 months ago, I left what I had known for many, many years and moved to Amsterdam. And I immediately enrolled at the Vrije Universiteit, the Free University, to study Dutch. Not an easy language, right? Anybody here from the Netherlands? Is anybody? No. Okay. And changed my lifestyle. If you've been to the U.S., you know, everybody drives, right? Everybody has a car. Most have more than one. But in Amsterdam, no car. I take a bicycle to work, if you can believe that. People say, what happens when it rains? Because it rains all the time. And what happens when it rains and you're on a bicycle? You get wet, right? That's it. Now, the good news for me, it doesn't mess up my hair. So that's important. But the reality is it's all about embracing culture, change, and the difference. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time this afternoon talking about this. And one of the principles I want you to think about is this: with change, or what I'm going to call not change, but shift, unlike our Italian colleague in Malta, with shift comes conflict. And if we want to replace the word conflict with challenge, you're welcome to do that. But the reality is that with change, with shift, it makes us uncomfortable. It's difficult, right? It's challenging at times. Your decision to come to an 11-day experience like this is a great reflection of how all of you are willing to accept, to embrace, to grab on, to shift, to change. Because it took you out of your comfort zone. You came to Kazan. You came here, right? To interact with 219 other people from all over the world, that's not easy, right? And so again, it is to your credit, and it's a great positive reflection on you. But what that needs to be is part of a pattern where you're always embracing new challenges, new things, because that's the nature of the competitive world in which each and every one of us live today. It's about languages, it's about cultures. In business terms, it's about markets, and different markets with different expectations, different tastes. And instead of backing away from that, it's about accepting it and really immersing, dipping yourself into it for everything that it can give you, both good and challenging, good and different. And to me, it's very, very important. All right, I want you to just jot down or take a picture of these 4 words. And we're going to spend a minute, because this is classic shift theory. And I want you to think about each of these terms as part of a process that we go through in the way that we manage shift or change, or what some still might refer to as conflict. But this is a theory that has been around for decades and decades. And it defines everything with which we deal that makes us uncomfortable. We can call that conflict, we can call that change. I just call it shift. Something that takes us a little away from our normal pattern of behavior. And it starts with contact. It starts with contact. When I moved to the Netherlands, I learned very quickly there's 2 words. There's a 2-word expression in the Netherlands that you will learn almost immediately. And it's a simple expression. It probably exists in your country, in your culture. But the Dutch have really embraced this expression. And the expression, 2 words, is niet mogelijk. Niet mogelijk. Anybody know what that means? Not possible. It's not possible. And when you deal with almost any governmental entity in the Netherlands, the very first phrase that will come out of anybody that's behind a counter that you're talking to about some process that needs to be addressed is it's niet mogelijk, meaning it's just not possible. It's never happened before. It's certainly not going to happen for you. And so you can stand here, you can ask, you can hope, you can pray, but it's niet mogelijk. The other thing that seems very silly is you walk into, have any of you been to Amsterdam? Anybody traveled? Well, come visit. Please come visit. It's a very relaxed city. Those of you who've been there would agree to that. A lot of walking, a lot of cafes, coffee shops too, but cafes. And when you come from the U.S. and you come to the cafes there, it's a completely different experience. And those of you from Europe, across Europe, it's very common. You sit at a cafe, and let's say you're on lunch. You're going to lunch from work. So you're expected to come back. But you go to a cafe in Amsterdam, and you sit, and at some point you want to order. right? You want to request food. Don't ask. Because if you raise your hand, you've done what? You've identified yourself as someone not from Amsterdam, right? So don't signal. Then if you finally get your order, it will eventually be served. Maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but you're outside, you're in the sun, you're sipping coffee, you're drinking water, you're just enjoying yourself, and then you eat, and then it's time to leave. And you've spent the better part of a day there, and again, you'd like to raise your hand and say, can I get a check? Can I pay? And it's almost impossible. And so what you learn is that just patterns are different. Behavior is different, and you need to embrace it. And that's the point of contact. Now, do each of you here have a roommate? Here, someone? Okay. Let's take that as a point of contact, right? You moved it, you came, many of you traveled a very long distance. You came here, you came to this spectacular property, and you end up with what? With a roommate. And that is contact. That is contact. Initially, you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm from where?
Kazan.
Kazan, right? And you're from?
Kazan.
Kazan? Well, I'm not doing too well. And you're from?
Tver.
Good. And so you meet each other, right? You don't know each other. And it's immediately what follows the contact, because you want to be friends. You're both students from different universities, different cultures. What happens? We'll call it conflict, or how about just shift, right? Oh, I wanted that bad, right? Or are you really that sloppy, right? Do you throw clothes on the floor? No, I know you don't, right? Right? Doesn't own any clothes, right? No, it's okay. So we always have to get accommodated to different behaviors, and that's the contact that takes place. And from that emerges what many call conflict, but it's really just how do we deal with change? How many of you like to stay up super late into the morning? Any of you stay up really late, right? How many of you like to go to sleep early? Right? Now, what if you're sharing a room with each other? Right? Right? Now, not that that ever happens, right? But of course it does. And so simple things that seem not significant, not important, but it asks everybody to what? To accommodate. To accommodate. Exactly as my colleague was saying, to accept the beliefs, the understandings, the position of your friend, your new colleague, and say, for 11 days, can I make an adjustment? Right? Can I accommodate my colleague, my new friend, and respect the fact that she likes to go to sleep at 3 in the morning, she likes to go to sleep at 11 o'clock in the evening, and somehow we have to live together for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. And so out of that comes accommodation. And then over time, what happens in bigger organizations is a type of what we call in the last box assimilation, which is almost a permanent adjustment that takes place. We accept each other's differences. You adjust, he adjusts, and we embrace it in a positive way. We don't ever give up our values, our beliefs, our customs. But in the name of, and it's a very hot topic, in the name of civility, we learn to adjust. We learn to accept each other's differences. Not easy. Doesn't happen quickly. We know many people who will not change. But in the end, in this great, big, complex, difficult, interesting world in which we live, it's all about this kind of adjustment. And so I want to show a brief video, if I might, that to me is a good YouTube clip on resolving differences.
So, why did you pick this class anyway, sweetheart? Beautiful view. All right. Y'all shut up now. Last week, we talked about the physiology of the animal brain as it pertains to aggression. Now, is there anyone here that can tell me why most alligators are abnormally aggressive?
I know the answer to this question.
Raise your hand. Anybody? Anyone? Yes, please.
Mama said that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Your mama said alligators are ornery because they got all their teeth and no toothbrush. Wow. Anybody else? Yes, please.
Alligators are aggressive because of an enlarged medulla oblongata. It's the section of the brain which controls aggression.
That is correct. The medulla oblongata.
Mama
The
said
medulla oblongata is where anger, jealousy, and aggression come from. Now, is there anybody here who can tell me where happiness comes from? Anyone? All right. Let's hear what Mama has to say on the subject.
Mama say that happiness is from magic rays of sunshine that come down when you're feeling blue.
Well, folks, Mama's wrong again.
Don't call me Sam, it's your wrong. Mama's right.
Something wrong with this medulla oblongata.
It is, to me, that is what we don't want to happen, right? Where the only answer comes through Adam Sandler's response, where he just attacked his professor, right? Now, luckily, I've never been in a situation like that, and I'm sure you haven't either. But it could happen. And so there was disagreement, difference of opinion, difference of fact, right? But at some point, we need to accommodate. And what we talk about here is this notion of adjustment, acceptance, recognition that we may have differences, we may hold on to different beliefs, but at some point, we need to accept those. And I love this where it says harmonious acting together in a social situation. Harmonious where it's we accept, we listen, right? We embrace, and we recognize that there's value to your opinion. I might not agree with you, but that's okay. This is a big, complex world we're in. And even within our own universities, within our own countries, right? There are enormous amount of disagreements that take place. And somehow, we must embrace those. And it's very, very important to understand this notion, if you will, of accommodation. And so I want you to look at this. It's a very simple graph, not too complicated. On the x-axis, we have time. And on the y-axis, we have what we call duration or rate or pace. And what we see happening over time is the pace of change, and that's really what we're talking about. The pace of change increasing dramatically, significantly, unbelievably fast. And at the same time, that little dotted line says the answers, the solutions, are moving just as quickly in the opposite direction. And so let me give you an example of a fantastic Italian company that's wrestling with this case today. Now, there's some students here from Italy, right? No? Oh, I thought we had some. All right, good. We can talk about Italy. But it's not about Italy. It's about a great company called Luxottica. Luxottica. Anybody know what this company is? It's the biggest in the world. The biggest in its industry in the world. Anybody know? Luxottica. They manufacture eyeglasses. Eyeglasses. And one of the biggest company in the world that's in this business. Now, I want you to think of this company, Luxottica, and I want you to think of these glasses, and then I want you to think of what's happening over time. Now, raise your hand if you either wear glasses or contact lenses. Okay? All right, so many of you here. All right? Now, what is happening today, 2016, in the vision industry, in the world of vision? Some people wear glasses. Ah! Who said that? Okay, so tell us what's happening.
It happens, it's like a laser surgery where you go to take, they take your, I don't know how to say it, how does it call? Dioptria. They do something with lasers to your eyes so you can see normally again.
Exactly. Perfect. So, let's think about this. You're in the business, you don't sell surgery, you sell glasses. Now, I've worn glasses since I was 4. A couple of years ago, I decided maybe I should have the surgery. Okay? After all, it will make me look much better, right? Yeah, I know. Okay. So I went to a surgeon, to an ophthalmologist, and I said, am I a candidate for the surgery? And she looked at me, she examined me, and she said, absolutely. I said, can you do the procedure? She said, certainly. I said, when? She said, next week. Now, I'd worn glasses for decades. I walked into the surgery. Well, let me back up. A week before I saw the doctor, I went to buy new glasses. Because every year, my vision gets worse and worse and worse. And I went to get glasses, and, you know, I used to have just regular single vision glasses. And then I needed what was called bifocals, not an issue for anybody in here, where it had the line in the middle. And then I reached the age where I needed a different kind of lens. I called it trifocals with 2 lines in the glass, and they weren't very attractive, and I had a very difficult time learning to use them. Because when you're reading, you have to look through one part of the lens. When you're driving or working at a distance, you have to work through a different part of the lens. Very difficult. They call them transitional lenses. So it didn't work. And I bought them in Europe. And these lenses were 700 euro. 700 euro. Now, to me, I thought, that's expensive, right? That seems like a lot of money. But if I wanted to see. So I went to see the doctor. She said, yes, we can do the surgery. I came back in a week. I sat in a chair. She used a fantastic laser made by Siemens. I sat down in the chair. They opened up my eyes like this. 4 minutes later, 4 minutes, I was done. I was finished. The next day, I woke up, no glasses. I could see perfectly. Perfectly. And I waited my whole life for a 4-minute surgery that allows me to see perfectly. Now, if you're Luxottica, what's the problem with this story? Why does it bother you? Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. People will stop buying glasses and they'll have the surgery instead.
Whether you pay 100 euro,
Yeah.
300 euro, or 500 euro, you get the surgery, right? And no glasses. Now, on the other hand, how many of you have ever bought glasses on the internet? Any of you ever bought glasses on the internet for prescription? Or just the frame? Okay, the frame. You can buy prescription glasses on the internet from sites. I've bought them before the surgery. Sites in Poland, in Slovenia, for about 15 euro. And if they don't work, what do? You send them back. You send it back. So, not only challenges with surgery, but what we call disruptors who are offering the same product without going into a store, right? Without going into a store for almost nothing. Now, if you're Luxottica and you're a big global company, what do? How do you respond to that? Shift happens. Very complex. The market changed. What about this company? What happens to it? So very difficult, very disruptive, and it's all about how do you respond to that? And so whether we personally or companies or governments, it's all about how do we respond to change when it occurs. Because over time it's happening very, very rapidly. And what we have to accept is, do we let it run by us, or do we respond to it in some unique way? And let me give you a couple of other examples. Any of you have an Apple phone? Any of you have an Apple phone? And any of you have some kind of MP3 device, like an iPod? Any of you? Okay. I want you to look at this, because this is, to me, and you know, I've been a business professor a long time. This is one of the great stories that has taken place globally. There's a non-profit society in Germany called the Fraunhofer Society. And in 1994, about this time of year, 22 years ago, this society oversaw the development of a new technology. 22 years ago, the MP3 technology, which allows each and every one of us to carry around a limitless amount of music or data storage on a very tiny device, right? And to play it back. To use that wherever we go, whenever we want it, and to listen however we want to listen, to carry it around for almost next to nothing. Now, all of you know Apple, and all of you know that one of the founders of Apple was Steve Jobs, who died pretty recently. But Apple had fired him in the 90s when it wanted to go a different direction. And Steve Jobs went on to create a fantastic film company called Pixar, which he sold for $7 billion. So he was just an amazing individual. And Apple in the 90s began to lose major market share. Their computers weren't interesting anymore. They weren't unique. They weren't creative. And they called Steve Jobs on the phone and they said, will you come back? Will you come back and help rescue Apple? He said, yes, but only if you let me do what I want to do, which is not work on computers, but is work on portability, on the ability to carry technical products that are smaller and smaller and that can keep more and more amounts of data and information. And they said, whatever you want to do. So Steve Jobs saw the development in Germany at Fraunhofer with MP3, and he said, I want that product. They said, you can't have it, but you can license it, you can use it. So Apple became the first major global company to embrace MP3 technology with the iPod, right? Introduced almost 20 years ago. And they captured a huge global market share. Today, they still have over 70% of the market. 70% of the global market. Now think the other global players like Samsung and Sony, everyone could access it. Everyone can use the same technology, but we still continue to buy Apple products. So as we said, shift happens. Apple jumped on it and now owns the global market, and by the way, forever changed the company. The second product over here on the right, many of you have seen that little product. It simply connects to it plugs into your smartphone. That one picture down underneath the iPod is a dongle, right? It's a dongle. And that one is called Square. And it looks like a little square device that attaches to your smartphone. Have any of you used the Square before? Have you seen it before? Some of you seen it? Can someone tell us what it is, how it works? You know? Yeah, go ahead. You're exactly right.
Yeah, when people in China, we do not have the POS to get charged. The people use their smartphone. We use like a PayPal and Alipay, and can use to swipe the credit card. Use this device connect to the bank clear system, and you can finish the transaction with the customer and the business. But
As simple as that.
yeah.
And this is a very famous entrepreneur by the name of Jack Dorsey, and it's worth looking him up and seeing the other things that Jack Dorsey has invented. But he invented the Square. and thank you for your answer because you were exactly correct. He brought the ability to transact with credit cards to the world. To the world. Anybody can connect this dongle, this little square, this little piece of plastic, to your smartphone, swipe a credit card, and immediately be an entrepreneur, be in business, and receive payment for your products or your services. So what Dorsey did with one invention, much like the Fraunhofer Society, was change the ability of the world to make transactions, to buy and sell. So anybody with their own business of any kind could have this dongle, could have this square, not rely on any financial institutions, and be in business for themselves. So to me, it is actually one of the most exciting, revolutionary innovations that have taken place in person-to-person payments, and very unique. And now I want to talk briefly about 3 car companies. 2 of them were almost out of business. And I'm sure you know of them, both Volvo and Jaguar Land Rover, right? You know both these brands, all 3 of these brands, very famous, global brands that have almost disappeared, that almost went out of business. Why? Because shift happens. Because Volvo, a great, famous Swedish car company, missed the changes to the market. They refused to change their design, their style, their engine, and people quit buying them. And then with Jaguar Land Rover, 2 very famous brands, what was the problem? They made great cars, they just wouldn't run. They always needed repairs. Now, it's nice to have a great-looking car, but if you can never drive it because it's always getting repair, it's not of much use to you. So both of these companies were almost out of business. And what happened? A fantastically innovative Chinese company came in. They bought Volvo and have dramatically improved the product, the design, the performance. Now, Volvo, interestingly, still promotes itself as a Swedish company, as a Swedish brand. Now, it is a Swedish brand, but it is not a Swedish company. And did Zhejiang Geely not come in and buy this company and dramatically change the product, it would be out of business. The same thing with Tata, with Jaguar Land Rover. Same thing. Here were 2 great brands, 2 very famous brands, almost out of business until Tata came in and said, you know what? We can do this better. And so this great Indian company came in. They redesigned the product. They changed the manufacturing. They made major shifts to the way that these cars were developed. And now both of these companies are hugely successful global brands today. And then my favorite, one of my favorites, how many of you know Tesla? Any of you? Okay. Yesterday, the founder of Tesla gave a fantastic speech on the next 10 years of his vision. A fellow by the name of Elon Musk. Many of you have seen him, have heard him, have seen the car. Talked about his vision. And one of his visions, and you know the company is about to buy a major solar panel company. And he says the company of the future will integrate, will connect the solar panels on your home or your business with your electric car and the lithium batteries that power that car, and it will be one connected enterprise. And then many of you know part of his vision is to take the Tesla batteries when they've dropped to about 70% capacity. You remove them from the car and sell them to people with homes to do what? As generators, backup power for their homes. His third vision with the Tesla, and I don't know if you've been in an electric car. They're fantastic, they're quiet, they're interesting. But what's the problem when you're on a ride in an electric car? And let's say you wanted to tour across Europe. What's the problem if you're driving an electric car?
That's running out of battery.
I mean, that's as simple as it gets. Thank you. You're exactly correct. Your battery runs out. As a matter of fact, a Tesla will go on a good day about 400 kilometers. About 400 kilometers. It's a nice distance, but you probably want to drive farther in a day than 400 kilometers. So his new vision, and you know they have charging stations for your home and supercharging stations at work where you can get a charge in about 30 minutes. The new model is you drive in to perhaps a regular petrol station where you would normally fill up with gas, no gas, and what do? They take out your battery and they simply put in another one. And in 5 minutes, instead of filling up with fuel, they've changed your battery and you go for another 400 kilometers. Because at some point, while they will continue to work on battery capacity, and by the way, that's their new gigafactory that is just about ready to open. It will be the largest producer of lithium-ion batteries in the world. It's still not enough, and technology will improve over time. And if you've been to the Netherlands and they manufacture them in Tilburg, or you've been to Norway and Teslas are everywhere, it's fascinating to see them. But at the end of the day, you've got to go farther. You need more kilometers from the car. And so change, again, is complicated. And what Musk is doing, and you will find people that love him and then people that can't stand him, but the reality is it's about embracing change and the need to constantly reinvent, the need to constantly be looking at new products, new services, new ways, because if we continue to do things the way that we've done them, we will be that dotted line and we will not be of any use to anybody in the future. So it's very, very important. Okay. So today, sorry. Okay. So what drives great societies today? We talked about contact, the change that takes place, accommodation, assimilation. What drives truly great organizations, great societies today? And to me, it's 5 principles. 5 principles. The first is the ability, what you're doing on your teams this week is to collaborate, is to listen to one another and to figure out how you work together. To me, very important, critical in this world of differing opinions, different cultures, different beliefs. You have to understand that the team, at the end of the day, will produce a better result, a better product. Second, in this great globe of ours, is understanding the issue of diversity and inclusion. That we're a big, diverse world, different beliefs, different ideas. Sergey and I were talking over lunch about the American political elections that are taking place in November and how polarizing they've been, how they've upset so many people around the world. It is about the unwillingness to embrace diversity and inclusion and to recognize that it is the diversity that makes us stronger, that makes us better. Third is this notion, and you talked about this, of respect. And I want you to acknowledge that we earn it, we don't give it. And so to be respected by a friend, by a colleague, by an associate, or to be respected by someone who disagreed with you is a challenge. And so each and every one of us works in our own way to earn the respect from our colleagues. Fourth, and something that's very difficult for many, is to be open. The word that's used today most often is transparency. Transparency. To be open, to share, to listen, to embrace what others say, and to welcome unique and challenging ideas. And the last point, and I picked up a quote from St. Thomas Aquinas there, deals with friendship. And at the end of the day, if we want to talk about accommodation, that it will really come through friendship. And to me, that's critically important. So I want to give you, an illustration of these principles and your role in it today. Because it's going to take unique leaders. You've been picked from 7,000 applicants to come into this program, for many of you because of your leadership capability. Your leadership capability. And that's high praise for each and every one of you. And so what are the challenges today? And you can see it's about change, adapt, adjust, and some issues related to this that I want to share with you. First of all, there's a term, and I love it. It's about permanent whitewater. So if you imagine a river like the Volga, but after a major rainstorm where it's moving fast with waves and whitewater, very difficult to navigate, very difficult to swim or to travel in that water. That's the kind of world that we're in today. It's very difficult, very challenging. So it will be up to you as leaders to drive change. And there's 4 principles there that each and every one of you need to think about. You need to be fast. You need to be ferocious. That means to be passionate about your beliefs. Listening. But once you've made up your mind, to be absolutely ferocious in how you move forward. To be focused. That is to have a very clear strategy, a very clear direction about the way you will move. And then my favorite word is to be agile. You've got to be flexible. You've got to learn how to dance. And some of you looked pretty good out here. But the reality is, great leaders today understand that you cannot be rigid. You cannot be fixed. You must be welcoming. You must be inviting. And you must compromise. You must accept the diversity of opinion that will ultimately lead you to a much better answer. So to each and every one of you, I think this is probably the summary of this notion of what I'm focused on this afternoon is 8 principles of leadership that to me are very, very important for each and every one of you. And I want you to think about these as they apply to you. The first is about innovation and creativity. That some of you may say, well, I'm not really very creative. I'm not very innovative. And I think it would surprise you how much you are. You become innovative, you become creative by reading, by listening, by observing, by embracing change as it comes, and say, how do I respond to this changing landscape? That comes from innovation and creativity. The little story we told about Steve Jobs, he didn't invent MP3 technology, but he saw it and he said, I can use it. So it's not always about inventing something, it's embracing it. Second, and this was the point we made in talking about change, you must be willing to be flexible and to change. If you remain in the status quo, you will be ineffective. You will not be successful. Everything is changing around us. We've got to accept that. We've got to embrace it. We've got to use it to our advantage. Very, very important. Third, the old belief was it was about size. Big companies, big countries, big governments. Big was always best. It was always best to be bigger than everyone else around you. Today we know not so true. Today we believe fast beats slow. So no matter how big it is, if you're faster to respond in the business world, if you're faster to the market, you will be successful and you will beat the bigger. So today it's about quickness, it's about agility, it's about listening, it's about learning, it's about observing, and then making a good decision. So fast beats slow. Fifth, very important to listen to others. And Sergey talked about this. We call this in the business world to be client-centered, customer-centered. What it really means is just listen to what other people are saying. Very, very important. Listen to what other people are saying. So often, we don't like to listen. We much prefer to hear ourselves talk. But the reality is, let others say what they want and then process it. 6, great organizations today, as you begin to finish your university studies and look at what you'll do next, most of you want to continue to obtain new skills, new talents. Look for organizations that will support you in doing that. As you obtain new skills, maybe you want to learn how to code. Maybe you want to study new languages. The reality is very important to continue to add those skills to your talent set. Very, very important. Number 7 is the belief that the things that you've done, the way you've done it, that have brought you to where you are today, will probably not be successful in the future. We call this transformation we must change. We cannot continue to do things the way we've always done them. They will not be successful. And so we must always embrace change because that's the nature of the world. And finally, the last point, which to me is so critical, you can't do it by yourself. The world is too complex. The world is too difficult. The world is changing too rapidly. So what you're doing in these groups of 12, these teams, is a perfect example. It's a belief that the product that your team will create would be much better than what you could do by yourself. Much better. So it's very, very important to work as a team, work together, and understand that the team will always, always be much stronger than you. And these are some notions, some ideas around teamwork that build success, and very, very important to understand that. And so the last point I want to make, and see if you have any questions, is about this idea of listening. Because to me, it's the greatest talent that you can bring to any discussion or any interaction is the ability to listen. And I want you to look at your colleague next to you, on either side of you, and imagine that friend next to you and yourself if you, in fact, had not one, not two, but 3 ears. All right? And imagine what your friend next to you would look like with a big ear right here in the middle of their forehead. Now, I know that's an unusual picture, but I want you to bear with me just for a minute while I explain this. And I'll explain it by thanking you for the opportunity to be with you today. And I would say thank you for inviting me. Now, the reality is you're probably sitting there thinking, Tim, not only, and what is your name? Timur saying, Tim, not only did I not invite you, Timur saying not only did he not invite me, but when he finds out who did invite me, you're going to tell him how upset you were, right? That we didn't want you to come anyway, right? No. So let's say that's what he's thinking. But nevertheless, Timur, I want to thank you for inviting me. But the second ear, now that was with the first ear. That was with Timur's first ear. But with the second ear, and we've all got two, you sat there and you listened to what I was saying. Now that sounds complicated, but the way most of us listen today is not very complicated. We act like we're listening, but we're not. Now, if you don't believe me, try this. What is your name? Bernie. The next time, Bernie, somebody asks you, Bernie, let's say tomorrow morning, how you feeling? Tell them the truth. Tell them, you know what? Not so good. I didn't sleep good. I don't know what I had to eat last night, but it wasn't so good. You know, I feel rotten. I feel horrible. More often than not, the person that asks you keeps walking, says, hey, Bernie, glad to hear it. Have a good day, right? Because they're not really listening to what you said. Oh, sure, they asked, Bernie, how you feeling? But did they care? Not really. Now, I'm not saying anybody in here does that. The reality is most of us do that. Bless you. We say things, we don't really mean it. We say it because it seems politically correct. It seems the appropriate thing to say, but I don't really want to hear how you're doing, particularly if you're not doing well, right? So that's what we do with ear number 2. But with ear number 3, and I want you to think about this because it's the most important ear, the one right here, We listen to what people want to say, but don't know how to express. So what do I mean? We listen to what people want to say, but don't know how to express. The reality is it takes a lot of energy to listen to people, to watch how they're saying it, to look at their other motions with their hands, with their body, with their eyes, with the tone of their voice, to truly understand what it is that they're trying to communicate. Now, to listen like that takes a great deal of energy, a great deal of effort, and frankly, a great deal of commitment on your part. But at the end of the day, it's that energy, that effort, that commitment with all 3 ears that separates the world class in this room from everyone else out there. Thank you, folks, very, very much. So I know we have a few minutes for any questions, comments, concerns, issues at all. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear what's on your mind, what's concerning you, what's of any issue to you. Right? So anybody? Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for the great and amazing lecture. That's it.
And tell me your name and where you're from.
Johanna, I'm from Israel.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great. What else? Yes.
Actually, I wanted to ask you a little bit of personal question. What is the biggest change that you made in your life?
You know, it's a great question. And, you know, change happens at different waves in our lives, right? Well, first of all, my wife and I have 4 children. That's a lot of change. And over time, it became sort of a dramatic issue to deal with. But it's interesting. I was a dean, like Professor Masanoff, for 21 years. And 8 years ago, I decided to leave that, and I became a rector or president at a university. And to me, professionally, that was the most dramatic change. I liked being a dean. It was fun being a dean. I like that environment. When you go to become a rector or president, you deal with politics. You deal with other faculties. It's a big headache, and it was a major change. You might ask, well, what about moving to Amsterdam? That's the easiest thing I've ever done. You know, that there's no problem in the Netherlands. So, but it's a good question. Yes, please. And tell me your name, please, and where you're from.
My name is Rachel from Nigeria. I'm 2. Oh, wow.
Yeah, what a nice place.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a great place. So you got some bad traffic, though.
Oh, it's...
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
I hope everybody has the opportunity to go to Lagos, because I thought we had bad traffic in Los Angeles.
Yes, the traffic
Let me tell
crazy.
you, nothing like it at all. But go ahead.
Okay, my question is, on one of your slides, you showed something like a movement on contact, conflict, accommodation, and assimilation.
Yes.
And you gave an example about, living with a roommate who sleeps quite late, and you are somebody who likes to sleep early.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with a change that is, more than 11 days, something that is a lifetime, and that's really something you can't really stand?
I think that's a fantastic question, Rachel. Thank you. I really do. And because it's probably one of the most profoundly important questions you can ask. Because at times it asks whether or not we can make a fundamental shift in our beliefs to reach an accommodation, right? So we're not talking 11 days, and that's a very good point, because for many of you say, well, for 11 days I can put up with anything, right? But what if it's longer, right? So at many times, I'm going to give you an example of that. Our second son works for a big global, he's a young person like you, just finished his MBA, and was working for a global biomedical company with offices all over the world. And his boss, he'd been there 2 years, asked him to do something unethical with a client, a big client. So what do you do? And this is exactly what Rachel is asking. Do you accommodate? Well, it's my boss, right? My boss tells me to do this. I've been here 3 years. I'm on good progress. I'm going to get promoted. I may get a bonus. I may get a raise. This is a customer that the boss has known for years, and he's asking me to do something unethical or not. Wait, let me finish. I'm sorry. So, because there's a punchline, right? And the punchline is, Preston, that's our son, he left the company. Now, that's disruptive, right? Shift happens, right? The change happened, but he said he'd rather risk going back into the market, finding another job, than to do something that was very unethical. Just not right. So, we're all, over the course of your professional lives, going to make decisions like that. And sometimes, and I can't say what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. At the time, it's very complicated. And so we have to justify it to ourselves and be comfortable with the final decision. You know how they say, can we live with it, right? So it's different for different people. So very, very fine question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for the lecture. My name is Isaac Tani. I'm from Nigeria.
Great.
And my question has to do with the 3 aspects of the lecture.
Yes.
Change, conflict, and you.
Yes.
So the world is constantly changing. Every second we see new things. Once you go online, you see different types of news, good or bad, and the rest. And there's a lot of conflict. So as young people here, I want to ask you, sometimes it seems we don't have any important role to play, or we can't even do anything significant to change. So what do you think? What do you think we can really do anything as young people right now to affect some of those changes positively?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
Isaac, it's a great question. And you know what? It's an important question. And here's what I'd like you to think about. And you heard me say this, and I've talked to students about this for 37 years. You begin first, before you do anything, by reading, and I know that it's hard to listen to this. Read as much as you can. You know, we think we're experts, but you need to devote as much time as you can to studying a subject, studying a question, studying an issue, and understanding it to the very best of your ability. Certainly your friends have opinions, they say things, they believe things, they refer you to things. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions. And then what? And then in your own context, you take action that you believe is appropriate, is focused, is fact-based, and I need to share this with you, and is one with which you feel comfortable. You know, I would never tell anyone to put themselves at risk, and that's a very difficult decision that many must make. I can tell you, for example, what happened with Brexit in the UK and what's happening in the US right now with the presidential election. What happened in the UK, and this is an important message that I've sent back to the US, young people in numbers fail to vote. We know how the young people who voted, but the real story that hasn't come out of Brexit, millions of young people simply didn't vote because they felt, well, what does one vote matter? And in the US today, and without talking politics, but just a little bit, if the young people, and I mean 18 to 35, if the young people in the US do not vote in the millions, Donald Trump will be the next president. There's no question about that. Now, that's not right or wrong, good or bad. That's a real observation. So you and you and you, if you lived there and if you could vote, you could affect change by your one vote. But you must go to the trouble of voting. So whatever it might be, now, for some people it's about blogging, right? It's about voicing your opinion in a civil, thoughtful way on the internet. It may be about speaking. So you need to look at the mechanism that's right for you, Isaac, that works for you. You will be shocked at the power of youth. You will be astounded at what you could do if you choose to do it. So, and by the way, again, the fact that you came here and were selected to do that says you've got some very special talents that need to be used in the future. Okay. Yeah, we'll take two more.
I'm sorry. Hello, my name's Bryony. I'm from England. And actually, my question follows on from what you're saying. And I did vote.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. Thank you. I was actually going to ask, you touched on it a little bit. It's very refreshing to hear your views. Thank you very much. What is your opinion on Brexit? Do you think it's a positive shift? I would just like to hear more about what you have to say.
There's two answers to that. One, the people voted. It's a democratic country. It's very clear that it was an election that was open to all. And the vox populi, the voice of the people, was, let's get out of the EU, right? Right? And now Theresa May's job is to be the orchestra conductor to try to make that happen. You know, I selfishly, I wish the UK stayed, but again, it's the voice of the people. And so you have to support that because that's what democracy means. Right? Now, they may find out in 5 years, in 10 years, bad decision. That happens sometimes. But you have to respect that there was a civil, public election and that the people voted. Right? So you have to respect.
So my name is Albina, I'm from Uzbekistan. My question is about the situation in France. People from ex-colonies of France moved to France many years ago, in 1960s and 1970s. But conflicts appeared just recently, maybe during these 10 years. I would like to ask you the question, why, if they accommodated, and I think so already assimilation already happened.
Right.
Why conflicts appear nowadays?
It's a great question. And by the way, it's not just France, right? It's Austria, it's Germany, it's the Netherlands, it's Belgium, right? It's the US, it's everywhere. And it is a global challenge today. And I think you ask a really important question, and this will be a good one to end on as we talk about conflict and change. I have personally a passion for what I call the immigrant. Someone who could leave with or without family and friends and pick up from one country and move to another, voluntarily or involuntarily. We know how difficult that is. Different language, different culture, different belief. I mean, it's also the story of the world. The world is a story of migrating peoples who have moved for food, for fortune, or for other reasons for a better life for themselves. Sometimes they've been forced, and sometimes they've gone voluntarily. I think what we're seeing around the world now, and you're just using the example of France, but we see it unfortunately everywhere in the world, is this unwillingness to accept cultures, beliefs, languages, and ideas from others. And by the way, and this is where you come in, this is where you're important. Because I think this generation, you young people, I think, and I've seen it in universities, are much less concerned with all of those issues, with ethnicity, with color, with language. It's much less important to all of you, to the point where it's not important at all. It's not an issue. That's why we need your voice to be heard, and you need to become much more engaged in the conversation. Don't let the Le Pens in France control the conversation. You have a voice. You need to offer that, and you need to talk about strength in diversity, strength in inclusion, and not let it take over. I am embarrassed by some of the things that Donald Trump is saying about immigrants. It's shameful. And what he doesn't realize is it was his German grandparents that came for a better life to the United States. So how do you forget that in 2 generations? That's not, it's hypocritical, right? So we need to change that. Thank you all again very, very much.